The fourth edition of the Europe-IranForum, which has been called the Davos of Iran, kicked off in Zurich, Switzerland on October the 3rd. With roughly 400 delegates attending from over 20 countries, the forum is a significant gathering of Iranian and European business leaders and policymakers to forge relationships and set the agenda for Iran's economic development. Given the threat of U.S. President Donald Trump to withdraw from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, what solutions can the summit provide to deal with the status quo? If the U.S. really does pull out from the JCPOA while Europe is in favor of the agreement, how will the fallout affect U.S.-EU relations? And what are the likely consequences for Iran and the Middle East in general if the U.S. does pull out? I'm joined in Beijing by Harvey Zoding, a research fellow of the Center for China and Globalization, and in Tehran by Gamba Naderi, an Iranian journalist and political analyst. Gentlemen, welcome to the show and thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Naderi, now including both the first Iran-focused international business conference that's in London in 2014 and the largest such conference to date in Geneva 2015, the Europe-IranForum conference series is the most respected gathering for senior business leaders looking at the Iran opportunity, as well as policy leaders seeking the formation of a new and constructive relationship with Iran. How important is this forum for Iran's economic interests, and how successful has this forum attracted new businesses to Iran?
There was a new delivery of new planes bought by Iran from the European Union, which means that it's business as usual after the nuclear deal, which means that Iran has European partners, and let's not forget the fact that we also have a peace forum that takes place every year, and Iran is also a member of that. I myself attended this year's peace forum in Oslo in Norway, which was also attended by John Kerry and Mogherini. There they also made it absolutely clear that the nuclear deal, they are going to stick to it. It is binding, and all parties to the nuclear deal should commit themselves to that nuclear deal. That sends a signal to the rest of the international community that Iran is also open to business, and Europe is more than willing to do business with Iran. These economic forums between Iran and the European partners is only designed for one thing: to send a signal to the rest of the international community and major global business community that they can do business with Iran despite the bluster and the political games that Washington is playing right now. So it is good news. It serves the interests of the European companies and the Iranian economic players, and it is well in line with the nuclear deal that we signed in 2015.
Mr. Zodin, now we have often heard stories that sanctions, or we are hearing the opinion that sanctions as a whole don't really work effectively. Now, looking back historically, how badly have sanctions against Iran hurt the country's economy? Had it not been the sanctions, do you think Iran would have come to the negotiating table?
Well, I think it'd be interesting to get Mr. Naderi's opinion after I speak, but I think that they did a lot of damage, and that Iran was economically choking on those sanctions, and they did great damage to the Iranian economy. So I think they're relieved, or were relieved until Trump came into the picture, that it started to be business as usual. That's why the forum that you just mentioned in Zurich was such a success both this year and the last time, which was after the agreement was implemented, or began to be implemented. But now there's a huge question mark. So I think in that forum, the shortest but the most well-attended session is going to be the one called The View from Washington, 20 minutes. But in that room is going to be an 800-pound gorilla called Donald Trump. Everybody's worried about what he's going to do.
Mr. Naderi, what is your take on the effectiveness or the ineffectiveness of the sanctions the West and the European countries have imposed in Iran leading up to the conclusion of the deal, and how much catching up there needs to be?
Well, Iran needs a lot of investment, foreign direct investment from China, from Europe, and even from the United States. Sanctions are the reason why we sat down and signed that nuclear deal in 2015, because it was hurting our economy. We couldn't do business. We couldn't do even simple transactions through international banks and financial institutes, or even get a cease in order to import or export things from inside or outside the country. So we did sign that deal to stop the sanctions regime from affecting us negatively on every front. But as far as the nuclear deal is concerned, we think that that is a done deal. It's over. That's why we are taking part in these forums in Europe and many other places, because we believe that now it is the time to do business with the international community. If the American government or its companies are not willing to negotiate and talk business with us, that is their choice. But the rest of the international community has already made up its mind that they want to do business with Iran, and they want to do every kind of partnership that is possible, especially when it comes to oil, gas, and other forms of energy deals. So yes, sanctions did hurt us a lot, but we have now stopped it from hurting us further. And the good news is that Europe is also supporting us.
But Mr. Naderi, I think it's not the American corporations that don't want to do business with your country. They really want to do business. Boeing really wants that $25 billion deal. It's really Trump and only Trump, because American officials have certified that Iran is living up to the agreement. Even our generals on the Joint Chiefs of Staff have said so as much. But Trump is putting his finger into this and creating a mess.
Yeah, let's listen to what Trump said during the most recent UN General Assembly, where he expressed his dissatisfaction with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Let's listen to this.
The Iran deal was one of the worst and most one-sided transactions the United States has ever entered into. Frankly, that deal is an embarrassment to the United States, and I don't think you've heard the last of it, believe me.
Mr. Naderi, how did President Trump's speech gone down with the Iranians, and how likely do the Iranians believe that Trump will really pull out of this agreement?
Well, we are terrified because we know that he has done so many unimaginable things in the past, like, Muslim travel ban, and he is very well, pretty much capable of doing anything else, including leaving the nuclear deal between Iran and the international community. That's why whatever he says here in the Iranian capital, everyone takes it seriously, be it a reformist or a conservative. And that's why we are also fighting back. Iran's foreign ministry has made it absolutely clear, if America walks out, and walking out for Iran is also an option on the table. Of course, it didn't mean that immediately we will do that, because we have to consult our European partners. But at the end of the day, America is now calling the shots, at least inside the American community, and we have to take his words seriously, and we have to prepare ourselves for the unimaginable thing that might happen next month. But at the end of the day, we also believe that this is for domestic consumption. Trump wants to appease his voters. At the same time, Trump wants to appease Israel and his Arab allies in the Persian Gulf. But beyond that, if he wants to leave the deal, we have to wait and see, because we still have a month or so to see if he's going to deliver on that.
Mr. Harvey, what do you think is the reason behind Trump's threat to withdraw from the agreement? Do you think he has been informed properly by his advisors, who have actually certified that Iran is abiding by the agreement so far?
And Donald Trump has few advisors, hasn't filled many positions, policy positions, but I'm sure that the good people who are there have briefed him, both military and civilian. But Donald Trump has shown in his private business life, as well as his life as President of the United States, that he marches to the beat of his own drum, and the opinions of experts do not matter to him. And I believe he's playing mostly to his base here. And also, Donald Trump has said that America has to be more unpredictable in terms of our foreign policy and foreign actions. And this is just another devastating blow that he's imposing on the world community.
And U.S. President Donald Trump is weighing whether the deal serves U.S. security interests as he faces a mid-October deadline, as we talked about, for certifying that Iran is complying with the pact, a decision that could sink the agreement that's strongly supported by world leaders, especially those countries who negotiated. Now, if he does certify it, he will lose face, right, because he has repeatedly threatened to tear it up. But if he does not walk away from it, if he does nothing but to condemn it, it will also be viewed as having no real clout on the part of the United States, and no one will take the U.S. threat seriously in the future. So, Harvey, how do you look at this dilemma that President Trump is in at this moment?
I think he's put himself right between the horns of that dilemma, unfortunately. And I think it does serious damage to the United States, once a leading country, but now slipping fast, because no one's going to believe us when we sign an agreement in the future. So all the nations that signed the Paris Accords won't believe us, and especially now with the other country with the nuclear interest, North Korea, DPRK. If I were them, I wouldn't negotiate with the Americans, because you don't know if you can believe them or not. So really does the most serious of damage. International relations requires consistency and predictability.
Mr. Nadari, what is the Iranian take on this issue? Is the United States being viewed as someone who can be trusted, who can, with whom you can have a serious conversation, or the Iranian people, will take this example as a further proof of the capriciousness of the U.S. government?
Well, that's a good question, because our leader here gave the go-ahead to the nuclear negotiators to sign the deal with the United States and the rest of the P5+1 group of countries, because our leader said that I want to prove to the international community that America cannot be trusted. That is not a good partner when it comes to international deal, and it is not going to commit itself to the nuclear deal. And guess what? You just made it clear right now. America hasn't been trustworthy so far. It has backtracked. It has imposed new sanctions on us. It has stopped American companies from doing business with us, even Boeing, which is worth $25 billion that is going to make by selling planes to us. So at the end of the day, the leader has proven himself right to the international community that America is not a trustworthy international partner. But that's not the end of it. I think Iran also proved to the international community that if there is diplomacy, it can be trusted, it can be trustful, and it can do business through diplomatic channels with the international community. That's why they signed the deal. And guess what? It paid off, because Europe is doing business with us, because China is doing business with us, because Russia and many other countries are also partnering with us, irrespective of Washington's bluster or threats. So if America walks away from this deal, if the Trump White House leaves this deal, it is going only to isolate itself, not Iran. And it is going to prove to the international community that they shouldn't do any kind of deal or sign any agreement with Iran. Guess what? North Korea is taking note. North Korea is testing new ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons for the simple fact that they look at Iran and how it is being treated by Washington after signing that important nuclear deal. They just say, guess what? If we sign that is what is going to happen to us. So let's not sign it and stand our ground and face America, head on. So Washington has a lot to lose, not Iran. We have great partners in China, in Russia, and the EU, and we are not worried if the Trump White House walks out of this important deal. They have to blame them. All they need to do is to look at North Korea right now.
We're going to take a very short break, and you have been watching The Point with me, Li Xin. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back, and let's continue our discussion on the future of the Iran nuclear deal, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that was reached between Iran and 6 major countries in the world. Now, Mr. Naderi, if you look at the geopolitical clashes between Iran and the United States, there are so many areas of contention, from Yemen to Syria to Lebanon to Iraq, just to name but 4. Can there ever really be a rosy relationship between the two in the near future, or are they destined always to be on opposing sides from now on?
Well, that's another key question you just asked. I think America and Iran have already been cooperating with each other in the war on terror in Iraq. Of course, they are not on the same page when it comes to Syria, but in Iraq, they have been cooperating with each other for the past 5 years or so. So there is this kind of possibility for these two, rivals to talk to each other, to work together in order to bury the hatchet and sort out their differences through diplomacy and dialogue. I think the war on terror has succeeded because it is the last. The terrorist group of ISIL has lost a lot of territory in both Iraq and Syria because many international partners are working together, including Iran and the United States. At the same time, Iran talked and succeeded in signing that nuclear deal with the United States and the rest of the international community. So why not? I think there are many ways in which Iran and America can work together to sort out the differences through diplomacy and dialogue, especially when it comes to Iraq and Syria after the defeat of ISIS and other terrorist groups and extremist outfits.
Harvey, there is this saying by some experts that there is a relationship of a so-called semi-Thucydides trap between the United States and Iran. That is, when a country is on the path of rising power, prowess, it is doomed to clash with an established power. Do you see it here?
Well, I think in a limited sense, because it seems like Iran is trying to become the hegemonic power in its region. It's a very strong country with a very rich history and has had that position of strength before. So I think that there's friction. I don't think it's the same as the competition between China and the U.S., which is a much more global competition, but the competition is there. But as Mr. Naderi said, we've worked together on certain agreements, and we're going to be able to work together in the future with the right attitude. My concern is the position, the road that the Americans are going down now will embolden the Iranian hardliners. All our countries have different spectrums of opinion within them, fighting for decisions. And Iran has their hardliners. And if America continues to go down this path to abrogate the agreement, then I'm worried that Iran, the next day or the next few days after, is going to continue its nuclear program. And I think that's going to be completely destabilizing not only to that region but beyond as well.
Mr. Naderi, you were nodding to what Mr. Harvey was saying here. Do you agree? Do you think that is a possible scenario if the U.S. tears up that or continues to provoke some people in Iran?
Well, your distinguished guest was right to remind us that the bluster coming from Washington has weakened Iran's moderate government here. The same government that signed the nuclear deal with the United States. They were under the assumption that they can normalize ties with Washington after this deal, which did not happen, which the conservatives and the hardliners had warned already, and they proved to themselves and the rest of the voters in Iran that they were right. America cannot be trusted. America is not a reliable international partner. So this has weakened the foundation of the moderate government in Iran, and they don't have anything to defend themselves with. So yes, at the end of the day, if America walks out and threatens Iran militarily or does the unimaginable and attacks Iran's nuclear sites, Iran has many other options on the table, and as our nuclear experts and officials have made it absolutely clear on several occasions, Iran has what it takes to get back to where it was the day before signing that nuclear deal when it comes to nuclear capacities and enrichment of uranium for different purposes.
This question here, again, to Mr. Naderi, I would like to hear your comments. Now, a former CIA clandestine service officer by the name of Claire Lopez, she has warned that development of an Islamic bomb is an ideological religious imperative for Iran, given that Iran nurtures, and that's a quote from her, an ideology of radical Islam. She says that the mullahs who run Iran will never betray their religion by surrendering the most powerful weapon for material and spiritual victory in their global jihad. How do you react to such comments, Mr. Naderi?
We shouldn't take these kind of comments seriously because that hasn't happened yet. The deal is still on the table. Iran is committed to the deal, but as I said, one of the options is for Iran to walk out of this deal if America does so. So after that, we have to wait and see what's going to happen in Iran. But don't count on it that Iran is going to sit down and watch America attack its nuclear sites and facilities. Iran has what it takes to defend itself. Iran has cruise missiles, and as I said, Iran has the capability, the technical capability to reset its nuclear program back to where it was before signing the nuclear deal. But at the end of the day, as our leader has made it clear, Iran does not seek the bomb. We don't need the bomb. We don't know where to drop it if we have it. We don't need the bomb. It's just trouble. At the same time, Iran is calling on the nuclear weapon states to sign the nuclear treaty ban, to join the international community, to stop upgrading and modernizing their weapons of mass destruction, for the simple fact that it doesn't protect you from anything. Look what is happening between Iran and North Korea. They cannot drop the bomb at the same time. They cannot sort out the differences. They don't know how to handle each other. So nuclear weapons are not going to save you. Iran knows that. Iran is in the know. Iran will never make the bomb. But as I said, we have many other options on the table, and we are more than willing to implement them if America does the unimaginable and walks out of this important nuclear deal. But we have to wait and see.
Yes. Another comment I would like to hear your reaction to is also, according to Mr. Peter Vincent Pryan, Executive Director of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security, the Iranian government most notably violated the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty for at least 14 years before getting caught, in his words, and publicly revealed with the secret nuclear weapons program in 2002. So some people are asking the question, if the Iranians cheated then, who's to say they're not cheating now? What's your reaction here?
Iran is not going to cheat because IAEA inspectors are here. They are here and watching us doing our nuclear program 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year. There is no way Iran can undermine this deal or divert its activities towards building a bomb, because IAEA is here. And also, let's not forget the fact that they have on several occasions reported that Iran is committed to the deal. It has not violated the terms of the agreement. And if we are hearing some accusations from the United States, if they are trying to renew the stories that happened 12 years ago or 15 years ago, it's for the simple reason to undermine this deal, to prove to the rest of the international community that Iran cannot be trusted. But as I said, Iran is committed. Iran will never violate the deal. There will be no diversion as long as America does not walk out of this deal. As long as Europe, China, Russia, and the rest of the international community does business with Iran and does not, walk on the same path that Washington is going to do in the next months or so. So we have many other partners. We don't need diversion. We don't need violations of the agreement, and we are more than confident that there will be partners with us even when America walks out of this deal.
Yeah,
there will be no diversion. I don't think that is going to happen.
Okay, Mr. Zodin, very quickly, 1 minute please, your final concluding remarks here.
This is a very difficult situation for the world. And for especially Iran, United States, and Europe. If Trump carries through on his threat, it's going to irreparably damage U.S.-European relations. It's going to it's going to begin and continue an economic war whose consequences are unseeable, and also, worst of all, it could trigger down the road a nuclear war between Iran and the United States, and of course that's the worst possibility of all.
Well, my personal impression is I spent a lot of time covering the whole process of the negotiation, and I think it was treated as a textbook example of how a hotspot issue was able to be resolved through peaceful dialogue, through negotiation, no gunshots fired. People talked, although it was very difficult, but in the end, you know, a political solution, peaceful solution prevailed, and that was really a very relieving moment. Unfortunately, to see the deal in jeopardy at this moment, it's not very, how shall I say, it made me feel that a lot of our work, a lot of the journalists, the diplomats from 7 countries who worked so hard are put into jeopardy. Anyway, we have to leave it there. Many thanks to our guests, Harvey Zoding, a research fellow of the Center for China and Globalization, and Mr. Gambana Deri, a journalist joining us, and journalist and political analyst joining us from Tehran, Iran. And as usual, here is my last point. Again, another nuclear issue, and the world's message needs to be clear. There should not be another country on this planet with nuclear weapons. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has solemnly told the world during the most recent UNGA. That message was for the DPRK, but also for Iran. Now, the way to achieve that goal is the challenge. It took 7 countries 3 years to come to the Iran deal. Until there is a proven breach of the agreement by Iran, and until there is a better solution to resolve this issue that lasted over a decade before the deal was reached, President Trump should be very careful about tearing it up. That's all for this edition of The Point with Mili Sheehan. As always, follow us on Twitter or visit our Facebook page using the handle The Point with LX. Download the application called CGTN Live or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. We've got The Point.